restrictions in a bid to stem the spread. Today's new infections around 4,000. At least 17 countries in Europe have now confirmed cases of the new Omicron variant. As a result, numerous governments impose their own strict antivirus restrictions. Plus, a volcanic eruption kills over a dozen people and injures scores more on the Indonesian island of Java. Rescue teams scrambling to find the missing under thick layers of ash. Hello and welcome to this mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, December 6th here in Seoul, South Korea. Thanks for joining us. Our top story this morning. South Korea on Monday reported 4,325 new cases of COVID-19. The number of critically ill patients remained above 700 for the sixth day in a row. The exact tally, 727, an increase of 17 from the day before. There have been 12 more confirmed Omicron cases, bringing the total to 24. Prime Minister Jeonbuk Hyundai said on Monday that authorities will focus on containing the spread of the new variant for the remainder of the year. South Korea has paused its gradual return to normal scheme and introduced stricter virus prevention measures. The biggest change applies to social gatherings. In the capital region, groups of up to 6 people will be allowed. 8 can meet elsewhere. 1 unvaccinated person per group is permitted. Vaccine passes are now required in restaurants, cafes, theatres and cram schools. Visitors must show proof of vaccination or submit a negative PCR test taken within the previous 2 days. A 1-week grace period is in place. Now, as Omicron raises global concerns about a fresh surge in infections, some countries like Israel and Brazil are accelerating their booster rollouts, with some even reviewing the possibility of authorizing a 4th shot of the vaccine. This comes as over 180 Omicron cases have been identified across Europe. Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
As concerns rise over the rapid spread of the Omicron variant of COVID-19, the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control says 182 cases have been identified across the EU plus Norway and Iceland. As of Sunday, it added the new variant has been reported in 17 of the countries it serves. The ECDC explained the majority of the cases are in people that have a history of traveling to Africa, but noted there's evidence in several European countries, such as Germany and Spain, which shows undetected community transmission could be ongoing there. It says all cases for which there is available information on severity were either asymptomatic or mild, adding no deaths have been reported so far. Israel says it's mulling the possibility of authorizing a 4th COVID-19 booster shot to those with weak immune systems. In July, those undergoing cancer treatment in Israel were the first to receive a 3rd shot. Saying the health authorities are due to discuss a 4th dose this week, local media outlets say officials are concerned about the spread of the Omicron variant. Brazil is also accelerating its rollout of booster shots in an attempt to contain the spread of the new strain. The Sao Paulo state government says it will shorten the interval for a 3rd dose to 4 months from the previous 5. 6 cases of Omicron have been reported in Brazil, with all of them having recently returned from Africa. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
North Korea's pandemic-related border shutdown has worsened food shortages and affected supplies and the availability of cash, leaving its people even more vulnerable during the winter. This is according to the Washington Post on Sunday, which added new measures laid out by Kim Jong-un have further restricted economic activity, while referring to analysis reporting that this year's crop yield was not severely affected by summer flood damage. The report still said food shortages remain a problem, and international aid groups have left the north as a result of the lockdown. A US official says Iran has backtracked on all of its previous compromises regarding reviving the 2015 nuclear deal, adding Tehran is making fresh demands. The senior State Department official also warned Iran that the US will not allow it to, quote, slow walk the negotiations while at the same time ramping up its nuclear activities at home. Echoing recent comments by Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the official also questioned whether there's any chance at all of reviving the Obama-era deal. Former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will attend the Beijing Winter Olympics in February in his role as chair of the International Olympic Committee Ethics Commission. According to one of his aides, Ban expressed a willingness to attend the Games during an interview with Chinese state media. Speaking to Seoul-based Yonhap news agency, the aide said Ban's attendance is a matter for the chair of the IOC's Ethics Commission, not as a representative of a country. Ban was re-elected for a 4-year term in July, to a position he's held since 2017. Now, the price of LPG as fuel for vehicles, heating and cooking has risen by the most since 2014 in South Korea, despite tax cuts aimed at bringing the prices down. According to Yonhap news agency, citing industry sources, the price of liquefied petroleum gas in May 2020 was a little under 700 won a kilogram. That's about 60 US cents. But this month it's double that at $1.20. The government cut taxes on LPG by around 6 cents in November, but that has since been wiped out by another price increase of about 7.5 cents. Rising in line with global oil prices, LPG is expected to be a fresh burden for people in the winter when demand is high. However, the price is expected to ease somewhat in January. Now, wrapping up their 4 sellout concerts in LA, BTS has left a string of Billboard records in their wake, showing once again just how popular K-pop and Korean culture is becoming around the world. Han Sung-yu with this report.
K-pop sensation BTS's 4 concerts at the SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California sold 214,000 tickets and grossed a whopping $33 million US, the most for any run of shows at a single venue in the world since 2012. According to Billboard boxscore, Permission to Dance on Stage Los Angeles, which ended Thursday local time, recorded the biggest US-based box score in 18 years, and the second biggest ever in North America, only behind Bruce Springsteen's 10-show marathon at Giant Stadium in New Jersey. Overall, BTS has landed the 6th best grossing engagement in box score history. Billboard defines their box score as a report of all shows that an act plays at a single venue during a given tour or during a leg of a tour, excluding festivals, based on figures reported to Billboard. The music magazine also reports that what separates the boy band from other members of the $30 million club, like U2 and the Spice Girls, is that no other act had cracked the Hot 100 charts top 20 in the 5 years before their $30 million grosses. Another distinction, BTS is the first and only historically non-English act to top the 20 million mark in one engagement. The streets of Los Angeles, following the group's concerts, were teeming with fans eager for more.
We like to keep them for mementos of like a good time, a good family trip and memories that we've had going to the concert. It was really nice.
The thirst for K-pop is amazing. We've witnessed firsthand how strong a fan base K-pop and Korean culture have.
It's proof of just how mainstream K-pop and Korean culture, including K-drama, food, and beauty, is becoming across the globe, with BTS leading the charge. 한성우, Arirang News.
Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors have become the first team in the history of the K-League to win that championship for 5 years in a row. They beat Jeju United 2-0 at Jeonju World Cup Stadium on Sunday, finishing the season with 76 points to claim the historic title. Jeonbuk now hold 9 championships, more than any other club in South Korea. Ulsan Hyundai FC finished second to Jeonbuk for the 3rd year in a row. Salvador Dali is arguably the greatest master of surrealism that has ever lived. And in great news for local art lovers, the largest scale retrospective exhibition of the Spanish painter's works is being held at Dongdaemun Design Plaza right here in Seoul. And our Kim Bok-young went to check it out and files this report.
Keep an open mind and dive into Dali's artworks. Be free and Dali will fill you with his knowledge and art. That's what experts suggest visitors do when enjoying the largest scale retrospective of the Spanish master of surrealism, Salvador Dali.
Dali is known for putting outlandish and dreamlike landscapes on canvas, but it is never easy to see an extensive collection of his paintings. At Seoul's DDP, masterpieces from major Dali museums in Spain and the US are together in one place, inviting visitors to take a look at Dali's overall life and be immersed in his boundless creativity.
Around 140 artworks have been gathered from 3 major Dali museums: Dali's Theater Museum from the artist's birthplace of Figueres, Spain, the Reina Sofia Museum in Madrid, and the Salvador Dali Museum in Florida. From masterpieces with his iconic images of crutches and melting clocks to a variety of sectors he got interested in, making seminal films and animations and designing the props for plays and movies, the exhibition highlights every aspect of his career.
This sort of an exhibition with so much of the multimedia pieces here would have been exactly what Dali would have wanted to show. And this exhibition in Korea really demonstrates a very good understanding of Dali's love of the future and the present.
The experts say Dali was ahead of his time and brought the new genre of surrealist art to a whole other level.
André Breton once said about Dali that one of the things that he has given to surrealism was that he has opened windows of the way of thinking of surrealism.
Dali was the person that first understood the 20th century. And a lot of the things he does were not understood on his time. We've understood them later. So going through this exhibition with that mentality, trying to discover that Dali was basically the quintessential innovator and rule breaker is actually very interesting.
Travel to Dali's homeland of Spain might be difficult right now, but the exhibition, which runs until March, means we can enjoy his masterpieces here instead. Kim Bok-young, Arirang News.
Researchers in South Korea say they're now able to measure signals in the brains of mice that show the stress of trying to keep something you already have is greater than that felt in first trying to actually get it. The tech they use could help treat illnesses like depression and schizophrenia. Kim Chung-ah with more.
What's more difficult, trying to obtain something new or protecting what you already have? According to an experiment conducted on mice, trying to keep hold of something is harder. 2 mice were given a piece of food. Instantly, they began to fight for it, and their brain signals became 1.2 times more active. Eventually, one mouse gets hold of the food, and while the brain signal of the mouse that wasn't successful remained the same, the brain signals of the mouse that won were twice as intense. Scientists say these findings backed up their initial theories.
We inserted a brain chip into the medial frontal lobe, which is known to be related to social behavior. Since it was confirmed numerically through objective changes in brain signals, we've been able to prove what was only estimated before.
This experiment uses a miniature wireless brain signal measurement system. Signals for each part of the brain can be measured precisely. With a weight of 3.4 grams and the size of a finger, it poses no major physical restrictions to the mice.
The brain of a mouse and that of a human have a lot in common, especially when it comes to instinct and simple actions and functions. We hope that this can be applied to humans in the not-too-distant future.
The human brain is more complex, and so more research is needed. But more data on what parts of the brain need to be stimulated can potentially help with finding treatments for brain-related diseases. The research team plans to expand the application of the sensor to various social studies so that it can be used when treating illnesses like depression and schizophrenia. Kim Chang-ah, Arirang News.
Last year, thousands of homes here in South Korea suffered substantial damage caused by heavy flooding. To make sure nothing like that happens again, or at least to try and mitigate it, the country plans to use drones to inspect dams and water levels. Jo Sang-min with this report.
South Korea has recently demonstrated a newly developed water management and surveillance system using high-tech drones. The government-funded project was launched following the nationwide floods that damaged some 8,400 households across 17 cities and provinces in August last year. The project leaders have pointed to ineffective management of water levels at the dams and a lack of inspections in local rivers as the main causes.
As this area sustained heavy flood damage, various fourth industrial technologies are needed to effectively and scientifically manage the water.
Developers say the drones will be dispatched to inspect and monitor water levels and provide essential information in real time. The gadgets also use a heat tracing technique to detect the presence of people who might be in dangerous areas and can send out evacuation warnings. The drones are also programmed to automatically return to the compound in case of adverse weather. They're also designed to float on water for over 30 minutes if unable to fly.
They are almost ready to be deployed right away, but there are some restrictions over what's called beyond visual line of sight. So if the authorizations are made, they can be used.
The developers say the drone system will first be implemented for a test run at Seomjin River in Jeollanam-do province before being expanded to other regions once further improvements are made. Jo Sang-min, Arirang News.
Now, since the start of the pandemic, travelling to other countries has been incredibly difficult, if not just impossible. However, the introduction of so-called travel bubbles means people can now travel relatively freely, but there are certain restrictions, of course, to selected destinations. Our Choi Won-jung reports on one of these so-called travel bubbles between South Korea and Singapore.
Volcanic mountains and a beautiful coastline with stretches of white sand attract visitors to South Korea's southern island of Jeju. But this place, known for its nature beauty, has been almost off limits for foreign travelers in the COVID-19 era.
For nearly a year and 9 months, Jeju was closed to group tours from other countries due to the pandemic, but today, the door has finally been reopened.
In 2019, South Korea had over 17 million foreign visitors, but after the pandemic hit, the figure dropped by nearly 86%. For outbound travel, more than 28 million people took a trip before the pandemic, but that also fell significantly last year.
COVID-19 pandemic is a direct hit against airlines. It caused the majority of routes to be closed. So as a country that relies on international travel, this is a fatal situation.
Why has Jeju reopened its border this time? It has created a travel bubble, or vaccinated travel lane, which is an agreement between 2 or more countries to open up their borders for travel without mandatory quarantine. The process of traveling under the agreement varies from country to country. However, those who would like to travel to South Korea need to go through 3 COVID tests. They must take a PCR test within 72 hours of departure. one upon arrival, and the final test on the 6th or 7th day if they will stay for 8 days or more. They also need a couple documents such as a negative PCR test result, an official COVID-19 vaccination certificate, and a copy of their travel medical insurance. Under the South Korea and Singapore travel bubble agreement that kicked off on November 15th, 20 people from Singapore arrived on Jeju Island. Usually, group tours travel around the island by bus.
But to be extra careful amid the pandemic, these electric vehicles are ready to transport members of the tour guide on their adventures.
On to the next stop. These two members of group tour said they're fans of Korean dramas.
There was a lot of Korean dramas that keep us entertained during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
We were watching a lot of it on Netflix, on View, and the different channels. And obviously, Squid Game was all the rage as well recently, right? Yeah, and we were like, oh my god, we need to come here for Gongyu.
But what made you guys decide, hey, I want to go to Korea?
And when we looked at the situation, we thought, Korea's situation was actually quite similar to Singapore, where we were still practicing safe distancing with our mask on, and everybody was just quite prudent, right? So we thought, you know what, maybe Korea, it's a safer choice. So we decided to give Korea a try. And I mean, we like Korea.
For me, I'm still a little scared to travel internationally. Were you scared at all?
300 meters, we do feel turn right. A bit nervous because it's been 2 years since we've been traveling, right? So there's a little bit of getting used to that.
Once they arrived at one of the tour spots, the excitement began. They took photos, ate desserts, drank coffee, and most importantly, enjoyed some good quality time together. The one traveler who brought his whole family on the trip said he felt very confident doing so.
This is where we wanted to visit before even the pandemic, so once it becomes available, it's a natural choice for us.
According to Seoul's Culture Ministry, more than 1,000 Singaporean visitors came to South Korea just within a week, and this is 33 times that of the previous several months. However, the world is facing another COVID curveball. The Omicron variant is putting international travel once again in jeopardy. But that didn't stop some visitors due to the travel bubble agreement.
I was in Singapore for a long time, but it's been almost 2 years since I last visited there. I booked my flights as soon as possible when online sales opened up.
지금 사실 오미크론 변이주가 이렇게 좀 심각하고 있잖아요. 그거에 대해서 좀 걱정 없으셨어요, 여행 가면서?
I watched the news about it yesterday. Of course I was worried, but I still want to go while being careful.
So far, South Korea has already imposed travel restrictions on countries with high risk of Omicron variant. Starting December 3rd for 2 weeks, all overseas visitors must go through a 10-day quarantine, even if they're fully vaccinated. For the worst-case scenario, this so-called circuit breaker could put the travel bubble agreement in jeopardy again. Some tourism businesses think the travel bubble should continue.
If we close our borders, it will bring more negative impacts, not only psychologically but also economically. I think we should feel more confident and open up international travel if countries under the travel bubble agreement follow prevention measures well. That's the fastest way to save the tourism industry.
Global pandemic is far from over, but the travel bubble could be the turning point for international travel in the COVID-19 era. And maybe this could give people a little bit more breathing room to travel internationally in less stressful conditions. 최원정, 아리랑 뉴스.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. At least 14 people are dead and over 100 others injured after Mount Semeru, a volcano located in Indonesia's East Java province, erupted on Saturday. According to the country's National Board for Disaster Management on Sunday, the eruption left dozens in a serious condition after it covered villages with ash and left people running from billowing clouds of debris. 5 of the victims have yet to be identified, while 9 others are reported missing. Some 1,300 people have been displaced by the eruption, as hundreds of houses have been completely destroyed, with 33 schools damaged as well. Officials say the situation in the region remains dangerous, as pyroclastic flows, a mix of ash, rock, and volcanic gases, can be much more dangerous than lava. Authorities fear there could be more casualties, as a number of miners working near the site of the eruption have yet to be found. Standing at more than 3,650 meters high, Mount Semeru is the tallest mountain on Java. What started out as another morning of protest for citizens of Yangon against the brutal crackdown by the military turned deadly Sunday morning when Myanmar security forces in a car rammed into the anti-coup protest, killing 5 people and leaving dozens other injured. Photos and videos circulating on social media show a vehicle crashing through the protesters, with witnesses saying the car increased speed as it got closer to the protesters. Witnesses say that a handful of people, some who were carrying banners in support of ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi, were hit, as soldiers then jumped out of the car and began shooting as protesters began fleeing. Sunday's protest was one of at least 3 being held in Yangon, Myanmar's biggest city, as the rallies were held a day ahead of an expected verdict in the first of several criminal cases against the country's civilian leader. More than 10 months since the coup, the military has reportedly killed more than 1,300 people. CNN fired its news anchor Chris Cuomo on Saturday after additional information came to light during an investigation into his efforts to help his brother, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, deal with allegations of sexual misconduct. Cuomo, who hosted the station's most-watched primetime news show, admitted back in May that he had broken some of the network's rules in advising his brother how to handle the allegations from a public relations perspective. In journalism, it's considered a breach of ethics to use one's position to advocate for a personal cause or to conduct investigations for personal reasons. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Good morning. The weather looks to be a bit more favorable this week, but cold mornings continue, so be mindful of big gaps in the ratings and let's address accordingly. Air quality should be decent for most of the day, but toxic smog could blow in from overseas tonight, boosting dust levels in the capital region, Chungcheongdo provinces and Daegu, which could remain dusty through tomorrow. Meanwhile, a dry weather advisory remains in place along the East Coast while strong winds continue there, so please stay alert for wildfires. But thankfully, some welcome rain is in the forecast along the East Coast tomorrow. Most regions will see highs going into double digits with more clouds than sunshine today, with a chance of some spotty rain for some parts of the West Coast overnight. And above-average warmth will continue through the rest of the week with no major rain or snow in the forecast. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
존경하는 국민 여러분,
Fellow Koreans,
무역인 여러분,
distinguished international trading
우리
professionals,
경제사에서 2021년은
this year, 2021, will be remembered as a year of trade in our history.
우리는 올해 사상 최단
This year, we
기간에
achieved $1 trillion in trade in the shortest ever period of
올해
time.
대한민국의 수출
And
규모는
our export volume is forecast to hover around $630 billion this year, with our trade surpassing $1.2 trillion.
모두 사상
All
최대입니다.
these are new milestones that we have
한 계단 더
achieved.
뛰어올라
And we have took a
세계
step further to
8위의
become the world's 8th largest
발돋움이었습니다.
trading nation.
무역인들과 온 국민이
Such proud
힘을 모아
results were all
이루어낸
possible thanks to the mustering of strength by our trading professionals and the entire public.
방역에
Our
최선을
people
다했고
exerted their full efforts to achieve anti-virus
생산과
measures,
수출에
while
전력을
corporations
다했습니다.
exerted their full efforts to engage in
대기업은
manufacturing and
중소기업의
exports.
수출 운송을
Large
도왔고
conglomerates helped SMEs in
정부는
export
기업과
and
함께
transportation,
90여 척의
while my government,
임시
together
선박을
with the private
투입하여
sector, injected some
수출기를
90 temporary vessels to open the road
우리
for
경제도
exports. Thanks to our exports, our economy is also growing as well. Among any G20 advanced countries, our economy is showing the strongest resilience, and thus we are maintaining our status as the world's 10th largest economy. Domestic consumption and employment are also recovering. We have changed crises into new opportunities. Marking the 58th Trade Day, I would like to extend my appreciation to all of our trading professionals who have set a new milestone in our trade history. And my congratulations also go to all the honorees who received awards today. Distinguished international trading professionals, this year, our trade grew both internally and externally. The competitiveness of both our mainstream industry and new industries has been maintained and enhanced. In shipbuilding, we achieved the highest level of ship order, while our exports of petroleum and chemical goods surpassed $50 billion for the first time. Our memory chip industry maintained its global top place. Exports in our three major new industries, system semiconductors, green corns, and biohealth, as well as secondary batteries and OLED, all grew with two-digit numbers. Korean Wave garnered global attention as well. Exports of our cultural content surpassed $10 billion for 3 straight years, becoming a new export driving engine. And backed by the Korean Wave fever, we have ushered in the so-called Korea Premium era. The exports of our agricultural produce also surpassed $10 billion for the first time, while K-beauty also grew to stand as the world's third largest market. Above all, we were able to expand the horizon of our export markets, and I am very much delighted to hear that our export firms are being diversified. Our export markets not only include the 4 major markets, including US, China, EU, and Japan, but also exports to 5 major emerging markets such as ASEAN, India, CIS, Middle East, Central, and Latin America have been increasing for 8 straight months. Korean SMEs have become the major players of our exports. Some 10,000 venture companies and 25,000 small business owners are also actively participating in exports. The export of SMEs has already surpassed the highest annual record of 2018 back in November. And our export engine has become more diverse, and we have achieved growth both quantitatively and qualitatively. This was all possible thanks to your passion and efforts. We are just ahead to becoming a major trade superpower. Fellow Koreans, distinguished international trading professionals, the ROK has developed and grew based on a liberal trade. We actively took part in multilateral trade and established FTAs with 57 countries that account for some 80% of the world's GDP. We have continued to make efforts to lower our trade barriers, further reaching out to the rest of the world. Going forward, we need to also overcome the hurdles in achieving liberal trade. The COVID-19 pandemic-induced movement restrictions and supply chain uncertainties have been intensified, and the EU is introducing carbon border tax scheme. My government will continue to proactively counter trade protectionism and overcome trade barriers as well. We will stand together with the country's trade professionals so that they can compete with the rest of the world. First and foremost, we will be fully prepared to tackle the global supply chain uncertainties. From last year, we have adopted the early warning system to identify ahead of time the production and exports of major countries, centering around 4,000 items with high level of foreign interdependency. We will also designate major items for our national economic security and devise detailed plans for stabilization by specific item categories, including but not limited to the expansion of inventory, diversification of import channels, and domestic production. We will also actively tackle logistics bottlenecks. Via our integrated logistics information platform, we will provide logistics updates real-time to companies and also secure global joint logistics center and expand financial support for the logistics sector. Second, to make sure that we are not withered by external shocks, we will intensify and expand our export strength. We will provide comprehensive support from financing, marketing to consulting so that more SMEs can go global. We will also strengthen our digital trade foundation, which is creating new opportunities for SMEs. We will provide assistance for all procedures of digital trade, from providing information on foreign buyers' consumption, online transaction, as well as global delivery. We will also expand our exports markets. With the RCEP expected to take effect early next year, the market of Asia and the Pacific region will be further expanded. We will also seek to sign FTAs with Mercosur, the Pacific Alliance, the Gulf nations, the UAE, to expand into the Middle East as well as Central and Latin Americas. Third, we will respond to the intensifying global regulations and provide more support for companies to reduce carbon emissions. The world is now moving towards achieving carbon neutrality. Companies and goods with reduced carbon emissions can only have competitiveness in the new international trade order. My government will expand R&D and tech support for the development of low-carbon technologies here at home, and we also send our support for Korean firms that are voluntarily taking part in the RE100 and speeding up their ESG management as well. The government will also stand by the private sector as they achieve carbon neutrality. Fellow Koreans, distinguished international trading professionals, back in July, the UNCTAD has unanimously voted to upgrade Korea's status as a developed country. This was the first such case since the establishment of the UN Trade Development Agency. We have stood very strong throughout a series of crises, from Japan's export curves to the COVID-19 pandemic, and stood strong to become an advanced country thanks to the power of our trade. However, these very valuable achievements are also being negated or even looked down upon by some people. This diminishes the public's pride and hope. Our economy still faces wide-ranging tasks, including inequality and polarization. I ask the public to send ceaseless support for the achievements that we have made so far. Please send your thunderous applause to our international trade professionals today. We will overcome any kind of challenges. The public's potential is something that we should be very proud of. We will turn any crisis into new opportunities. We should go ahead together to become a trade powerhouse and economic superpower that can be withered by no one. Thank you very much.
감사합니다. 대통령님께서
Okay, we just heard a short speech there by President Moon Jae-in from the COEX Convention Center in southern Seoul on South Korea's 58th Trade Day, sounding very upbeat about the South Korean economy and the prospects for future business ties in the year to come. But we'll have plenty more on that speech and everything going on at the COEX in our next newscast at noon Korea time with Kim Mo-kyun. Until next time, goodbye.
지겨운가요? 힘든가요? 숨이 턱까지 찼나요? 모두가 최선을 다하고 있는 이 힘든 시기에도 분명 끝은 있을 테니까.